What is going on to the ladies and gentlemen of the community? What's going on, everybody? Man, it has been a life, hasn't it? All right, so welcome to the stream. We got a lot to get into. First off, I am in a good mood. Even though it's going to be a big subject, an important subject, and I have a lot to say about it. I will say for all my people who have been waiting years for this is a reality. Tomorrow, I'm going to set the link. We are doing the Grease 1 versus Grease 2 video. I just finished it. I finally have it exactly the way I want it, and you are going to love it. So Pop Culture Poppy is popping because we have the Grease 1 versus Grease 2 video. This has been a long wait. Let's put it that way. Today, I have a lot to say. I'm not going to lie, a lot going through my mind. I have been doing so much research and getting things done for the documentary while we're waiting to kind of get, obviously, a little bit more funding to start into the different things that we're going to be doing. So with all that being said, I started to think what separates someone who's able to become a killer. What makes them different from any other person? We did a video where basically we talked about psychology. We said that, psychopaths are more likely to become killers because psychopaths do not feel the same emotions that we feel. And it's weird because as a normal person, you go through a progressions of emotions and feelings and things like that. For a psychopath, they really don't feel that at all. They don't feel, they don't feel the weight of it. They don't have the same back and forth. They don't go into this place. But then what happens if someone kills someone who is not actually technically a psychopath? So the interesting thing about this whole subject is, what if you thought about it as most people who are monsters don't look like monsters? What if we started to think of them in a different way? What if we thought of killers as the next door neighbor, or someone like Lori who doesn't look like a killer, or someone like Corey Richins? You literally wouldn't know that someone like that could be capable of killing someone. So today we're going to jump into a few different things. A killer's motivation, what separates them from the humanity that we all seem to have that would stop us from making a morality choice like this. And we're going to kind of dive into the psychology of some of the stuff I've been doing some research on. So jumping right in, this is number one. What is a serial killer? So if we're really talking just serial killers, this is what defines it. It's 3 or more murders across separate events. Now, the weird thing is it has to have a cool-off period. So a cool-off period for a serial killer means there has to be a gap. This is a very odd, very specific way to measure this, but that's just what it is. And then it's different from mass killers, okay? And it's different from a crime of passion. So you have to look at it as this isn't someone, in a situation where they kill someone on accident or into self-defense or some other reasoning. And it's weird because you're not able to technically call Alex a serial killer. I don't know why. I don't know why this is the criteria for serial killers, but this is what it is. But it's, like I said, it's 3 or more murders across events and a cool-off period. And the thing is about the geological area of someone who does these killings has to do it in very different areas. If you do it all in one place, it doesn't count. I don't know. Don't ask me. I didn't make the rules. So here's the number one common traits, and this is what I think you have to meet this criteria, whether you're a psychopath who doesn't feel it or you're able to, I guess, in some way, turn your humanity off, your humanity. You have no remorse, a lack of empathy. So if you do something like this, you don't have any real repercussions of that event. So if you kill someone and there's a thing about that disconnect of humanity to actually go through with it, right? This isn't a moment. This is we're talking about premeditation. We're talking about somebody who sits there and really thinks through this entire thing, right? Number 2 is that they objectify the victim. So the weird thing about that is exactly what Chad, Lori, and Alex did when it came to being able to go to that place, is that they created the people that they were taking their lives as zombies, which becomes their object. That is no longer a person that is now seen as an object, a being that is filled with an evil spirit and that you can kill because it doesn't matter, right? So you have to pull. They do this because there's a part of them that does understand the humanity, and so they have to separate the two things. I think it's really crazy because that's one of the main things you see in all of these is that they have a reason. There's some reason why they had to do what they had to do. Then they have a need for control. Now, the need for control for a lot of these people is usually circumstantial control. So Corey Richins, Lori, Chad, Alex, all of them had a need for control over finances. And they also wanted to be out of responsibility of something. So for Lori, she wanted to be with Chad, so she didn't want her husband anymore. And then she didn't want to have to deal with her kids, but she wanted her husband's money and she wanted her kids' money. Well, Corey Richins wanted her husband's money. So it's a lack of responsibility, but that is in itself control, because that means I'm going to choose who lives and who doesn't. That is control at its finest. We don't get that choice. We are not God. We do not have that ability to make that choice. So that's where that starts, right? Fantasy life. Now, this is another big, interesting thing. Let's look at both of those examples. Even if you really want to go into coming into like people who didn't actually kill anybody, but were on that same path, like Ruby Frankie and Jody Hildebrand. They hadn't done it, but the same exact thing applies. That is the prerequisite that ends up in the worst ways. So they have a fantasy life. They have a ability in their way to be so disconnected from reality and completely fantasize about other parts of their life. So whether that's I want to live this life, or I want to have this experience, or whatever the case is, spiritual crap, whatever you want to call it. Corey Richards is a perfect example. She had a whole fantasy life built with her lover, right? She basically created a whole thing in her head that hadn't actually happened. So we were listening to those texts, and they're talking about this, living in a mansion and renting it out and, marrying me, and just, it's a fantasy. It's not happening in real time. So that's the number one, right? And then the double lives. So someone like Ted Bundy or Dennis Rader, they're hiding in society. It's like Dexter. A lot of people who do have that type of way to do it, they're hiding in plain sight. It's like the best camouflage that has ever happened. These people are mostly unsuspecting. And this is why I think it's more dangerous. And this is the point. You don't look at even Chad and think he's a threat. I'm just being honest. You don't really look at Lori and think she's a threat. You don't look at Corey Richins and think that she's a threat. So, and again, these aren't people that you look at and have an immediate fear from. And so that's the covert part of what we need to start seeing, is a lot of the people who become these monsters don't look like monsters. And that's the problem, is that movies have given us this pop culture idea that there is this look, this certain hair, they have these glasses. It's like the guy from Lovely Bones. That dude was the most like easy to guess was evil, because that's how we have identified creepy. We've created a vibe. But the reality is, most of the people that do this stuff don't give you those vibes. It's very like, oh, that person gives me serial killer vibes. Well, the truth is, most people who don't have that thing. They're camouflaged. So they're a lot more covert than we would like to admit, but it's the truth. And here's another question that I want us to really hone in on for this video. Are serial killers made, or are they born? There are so many studies on this. It's not even funny. The reality is, even psychopaths themselves are not born to kill. A psychopath has the tendencies that do not allow them to feel the normal feelings. They don't have empathy. They don't even know how to be human. They're like an alien pretending to be human. It's almost as if they need to mimic a certain kind of humanity, because the reality is they don't feel it themselves, and they don't understand why they don't feel it. And so that's different, though. That doesn't make you kill. The thing about it is that a killer is someone who chooses to do so regardless of if you feel this way or not. So perfect example, there's a lot of people who are psychopaths who, when they were younger, they have like, there's a tendency in like psychopaths for people who become murderers. There's like the stepping stone, right? So the stepping stone is usually animals. They kill animals when they're young because, again, the lack of empathy, for whatever reason, they're curious. So there's obviously rare cases in where somebody is just automatically more violent from a young age. But I'm going to go ahead out on a limb and say I think that this is more of a made situation because, again, the studies on psychopaths, there's no direct correlation to the fact that they would become killers. A lot of psychopaths function in society as the most successful people that we know because there's something about them that has a different level of a drive. And that doesn't mean that they would kill anybody ever. So again, that's the problem that we also have is in the psychological world, we've just automatically connected psychopath to murder. Well, that's not, you don't have to be a psychopath to murder, and you don't automatically murder because you are a psychopath. So we have to kind of erase that part of the psychology and really come back to this place of the only reason that is the case is, again, psychopaths don't have the same empathy. And so when they kill someone, they don't feel it the same way, right? I have a theory on just kind of Alex and Chad and all of them. They were so disconnected from reality is more what it was than them actually being psychopaths themselves. I do think Alex meets the criteria the most. I mean, a lot of the stuff we went through a list. If you guys ever want to watch that video, it is interesting when you pull up all the single things that, you know, you pull up this list and you can just go through each one. And I'm like, every single one of these meets the criteria. It doesn't make any sense to me, but that's where we are. Here's the other things. There's brain abnormal. Come on, Colby, say it. Brain abnormal. Frick it. Brain issues. Unnormal brain. I can't say the word. Impulse control issues and reduced emotional processing. So again, these aren't full-blown diagnoses that completely cause it, but if you have these things, it can kind of go into nature versus nurturing. So what created it? These things add to it. Now, let's go back to creation. You have severe abuse, trauma from a young age, right? Neglect and violence in childhood. Those things are huge factors when we start to talk about, is someone born into it? Now, again, I always bring up Dexter, and I always will, because in this show, Dexter becomes a killer based off of what his trauma is, watching his mom get killed. That is why Dexter is a serial killer. So again, that is the reason why, because it's so based in reality. That's why the show is so good, because it's so well done when it comes to the psychological aspect of a psychopath. That is the point. So if those factors are there, it can cause people to be more, have more of the ability to do so. Again, because look what it has to be. It's a numbing. People who kill people have a level of numbing. And it's interesting because a lot of the world is meant to numb, right? We try to distract ourselves, not feel the pain, whatever. That's what's so crazy is those, like, some of this stuff really can give you the lack of empathy that is self-created, not like a psychopath. That's kind of how I look at it. I don't know. So millions of people like experience trauma, but they don't ever become killers. Psychopaths don't always become killers either. So I always say trauma is not an excuse for anything. And I actually just had a conversation about this yesterday. You cannot run around and use your trauma as your pass through life to do the wrong things. We can't allow us to do that. The whole point of life is, I think, to get better, to acknowledge that everybody has some level of trauma. I mean, obviously there's degrees, but we can't run around and say, oh, well, I'm traumatized, so it's okay. Or even telling yourself that, or letting people enable us by saying, well, you've been through a lot. Okay, but at the same time, going through a lot should make me have more of a perspective, more empathy, more understanding, like put myself in other people's shoes who are going through a lot. I feel like it's supposed to be the opposite effect, not an excuse, especially when it comes to killing. Well, they went through a lot. Like, again, I'm sorry to say this, but the whole Alex getting in a car accident thing and becoming like brain damaged and then turning into a psychopath like 30 years later, that doesn't correlate. They don't add up. I'm not saying that a brain injury cannot cause some of these things that we just went through. If there's real brain frick it. I can't say abnormalities. Yes, abnormalities. that doesn't mean it automatically connects to killing. We have to stop trying to put these lines like it's power and connecting, our red and whites. Like, we have to slow down. It doesn't automatically just connect. So trauma doesn't just connect into becoming a killer. It's usually more that this person is more fantastical and has more of a fantasy-based mind, and therefore this is like a video game. Their life feels like a video game. That's what I think it more is like. It's like that's the disconnect from reality that allows them to go to that place and kill. And again, we had to separate at the beginning of the video. We're not talking about circumstantial things. We're talking about somebody who really premeditates and what is going on in their life around them becoming a killer. Okay, so not everyone with these traits becomes violent. Common red flags, though. These are the common red flags, and Lori hits every single one of these. Extreme manipulation, chronic lying, lack of remorse, enjoyment of suffering, and obsession with power and control. So I want to break down every single one of those. Extreme manipulation. Every single person, like Corey Richens, like Jody Hildebrandt, like Ruby Franke, has an ability. It's just like it's like their gift. They're able to manipulate people, and they get people to feel bad. They get people to they get emotional reactions. It's a real thing. They get people to feel something. Chronic lying. They lie without skipping a beat. So if they're telling you something, especially like Lori and Corey and stuff like that, they don't sit there and really contemplate the fact that they're like in this whole lie. They just are living their life, and they're probably justifying it the whole way. That's how they get through the day. People say, how do you sleep at night? Well, they're not seeing it as the full picture. They're living in the reality they've created to not feel bad. That's how they're functioning. That's what it is. Lack of remorse. Again, I don't know how much more you could get into this. Lack of remorse is as simple as they don't ever apologize. And I know way too many people like that. It's like, it's nothing wrong with an apology and meaning it. And people just have forgotten the art of apologies. I don't understand. And for them, they don't even think about it. We're not talking about like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I feel bad. It's like, I don't care. We're talking about like literally that level of lack of remorse. Like, I don't care that happened. I don't care. Like, no care. Zero. And then enjoyment of suffering. Now, this is kind of obviously for us, Ruby Franke, but some people like suffering, not in the physical suffering, like someone torturing someone. We're talking about someone enjoying someone who's going through hell, watching it, or someone who's wronged you. You want the revenge, so you enjoy watching them fail. It's complete bitterness, and it's effed up. And watching someone and watching them fail and wanting them to, like, I don't have a worse enemy that I'm like, I want to see you fail. I want to see you absolutely fail. That's just not my heart. I don't know, but it's crazy because some people do find enjoyment in it. And then obsession with power and control. Now, this is the most covert one I want to hit on. Obsession with power and control is so, in my opinion, in our society is more like we have an idea of what we think that looks like. Reality is some people just are so out of control in their life. They have an obsession with getting in control of their life. And that could be through any means, right? If they move too much, they don't have enough money, they don't like their job, whatever they feel like they're out of control in. Some people just want to gain control by taking over something. So that is what the power and control is. Not as, I don't know what the word is. It's just not as cut and dry. Like almost, I guess if you think about power control, you think of someone saying, I want to have a ton of money and be able to do whatever I want, and I can control people. I'm gonna tell them what to do. Some people will just do anything they can to get what they want, which is also a form of power and control because they feel out of control. So I think the craziest part about this entire research that I've been doing, because I've looked into so many different people who are more of the mass level, and then some people who I've just killed in other circumstances, right? Like a cop having to shoot someone that's won't stop or approaches with a weapon or tries to kill them. There's just so many different angles on all this stuff, but it's crazy because someone who can really cross the threshold into killing, they always have justification to themselves. Always. There's not a lot of people, like any people that you've ever thought of, they have a justification. Even if they're paid to do it, no matter what the case be, they have justification in their minds. Now, again, Psychopaths they don't even need to justify it. A psychopath doesn't need to sit there and go, well, is this moral or not? We're talking about someone who doesn't care if it's moral. There's no morality for them. That's the difference. It's sad to see that society and trauma can cause so much extra damage for the rest of people's lives. I don't understand why we haven't, I guess, just really hit on this more often. I think mental health is the biggest crisis that there is. And we're not taking the time to take care of ourselves. We're not putting our oxygen mask on, and it's heartbreaking. So I think it's really time for us to keep going forward with saying, put my oxygen mask on, get the help I need. And then if someone else is in these places, I mean, you pray and hope that you can help them or that they will help themselves. But the reality is the only thing we can do is become more aware. And I think inside of their minds, the hardest thing to realize is that they are going to do, if you're outside of psychopath, they're going to do anything they can to tell themselves they're right. And that is the true fear, is that it comes from so many different ways. So many sources get people to the same conclusion that it is justified and it is okay. Now, you have two different examples that I would go back to. With Corey Richards, there wasn't a religious context to why she did what she did, but there was a religious context for Lori and Chad. Either way, they got to the same place. It didn't matter what the reason really was that they justified it for. They did it because they wanted to. So at the end of the day, what separates, I think, someone who is a killer, who becomes a killer, is that they can even go to that place and say, yes, I can do this. I can kill someone. They have that threshold that's stepped over where that humanity is lost. And it doesn't matter whether it's fantasy, lack of empathy, whatever the case is, they completely lose all of their humanity and they become something else. So that is my synopsis of the day. I just wanted to give you guys a quick video. I love you. I appreciate you. We're going to be doing a little bit more videos and series on this, on stuff that I've been learning too. Hopefully it is helpful, and hopefully that we bring some kind of awareness to these things. Some people will hear these cases, hear these types of things, and be able to tell if they know someone that's like this, that goes through this stuff. The problem is with that, they could be more dangerous than we think. And again, we don't always know, but if we do know someone that has this, I would encourage anybody who knows someone to ask and see if the person that they know struggles with these things goes and gets the help they need before something bad happens. Anyway, love you guys. I will see you very soon. I appreciate you, and I will see you guys all on the next video. Love you.